video, and I labeled it as part 1, so I'm going to do a little update, and this will be part 2. It's not going to be a very long video. The first one isn't doing that great on as far as views go, so I'm not going to really go too much in depth. Now, everything that I said in that video as far as the tips and tricks and things that go for getting the mileage, all that stands true. Keeping your tires aired up, going easy on the pedal, watching your gauges, don't idle the truck, wind speed, direction, all that matters a lot. It's all standing true. And I said in that video that the load weight doesn't really matter so much versus the aerodynamics of the truck and the wind speed and direction. Now, some people don't understand maybe, or they don't see how that's possible, that a heavy load wouldn't matter. Well, the load weight, like I said, does matter to an extent, but to prove my point, I'm going through Nebraska right now with 5,000 pounds in a trailer. The same box is a box trailer, 379, going through Nebraska right now. I got a stiff wind coming out of the northwest, mostly north. Okay, 5,000 pounds in the trailer. I'm doing 60 miles an hour, and it's pushing 15 pounds of boost just trying to do 60 miles an hour with 5,000 pounds in the box. Now, conversely, I've done days easily where I've had a good tailwind or very little wind and can do 65 or slightly higher and only push 10 pounds of boost with 22 tons in the box. So that there you go. That'll show you right there. Now, if anybody was interested in what I got for fuel mileage on my next fill up after I filled up in Omaha, well, I went from Omaha with 44,000 pounds in the box across Iowa, Illinois, and on out to Michigan on 80 and 94. I went all the way out to Michigan, dropped off a load, picked up another load that weighed damn near the same. I ran back to Morris, Illinois. It ended up being about 883 miles on the tank, and I put 141 gallons in, which, if my memory is correct, came out to 6.2 miles to the gallon. Not bad. Okay. Now, the fill up after that, I went from Morris on down to Omaha, dropped off the load. The wind was blowing out of the south pretty good once I got out of Morris and up in the prairie where they're, up in the cornfields and everything. There's no trees for the most part. Started blowing pretty good out of the south, and I had 43,000 pounds in the box. Okay, so I had to go across Iowa with 43,000 pounds in the box and a good south wind blowing. Now, I was pedaling it across Iowa like I normally do. I never use cruise control across Iowa unless I have very favorable conditions with the wind and the load weight and everything. So I was, old school, running the gas pedal, a fuel pedal. People get all mad about the gas pedal and the diesel, but anyways, the fuel pedal or the accelerator to be, and so I ran the accelerator. I manually went across Iowa, pedaled it across Iowa, and did like not much more than 60 miles an hour going down the hills, maybe 65, and then going up the hills no more than 60 guaranteed. Didn't go over 15 pounds of boost, and a lot of the hills I was only pulling like 55, maybe 50 miles an hour. I did all that, got to Omaha, dropped the load off the next day, picked up another load. It was slightly less, it was only 35,000 pounds, but the problem was I went across to Nebraska with hella stiff wind coming out of the north at like 35 miles an hour all freaking day long. I mean, all day long. I left Omaha and it was just blowing from Omaha all the way to Ogallala. Just blowing. That's about, 300 miles or something, maybe a little less. Just blowing. And I was only doing 60 miles an hour. With the truck at 60 miles an hour, once I got past Grand Island and I could set the cruise, because otherwise I pedaled it from Omaha all the way to Grand Island also, because of the hills over there. They're not big, but their hills are hills. So once I got past Grand Island and I could put it on cruise, I put it on cruise, 60 miles an hour. I'm not going to go any slower than 60 miles an hour. I've done it before, and yeah, it'll help you, definitely, for sure, but I ain't getting anywhere, so I don't feel like it. So 60 miles an hour. Filled up in Oklahoma. It was like, this one I'm not so sure of. It was, I know it was less than 800 miles. It was like 780, something like that. Either way, it ended up being, I think it ended up being either 5 or 5.5. I'm pretty sure it was 5 miles to the gallon on that fill up. So, and then I've had a few more fill ups, and I left the shop, come back, heading east again, and the 44,000 pounds in the box, and back out to Michigan, filled up in, where did I fill up that day? Filled up, that one I believe I filled up in Michigan. I went all the way from western Nebraska to Michigan, and I filled up, because the first day, it was all easterly winds, but the first day it was actually pretty light winds, so I was able to set the truck at 60, and it was only pushing 10 pounds of boost, so I was getting decent fuel mileage. I ran this truck enough to know where the boost gauge is and what kind of fuel mileage I'll get with that, depending on how well it sits there. Well, it was sitting at 10 pounds of boost all day long, doing 60 miles an hour, with a 44,000 pounds in the box, and a light easterly headwind, so it wasn't bad. But the problem was, is then after that, I went through Iowa, and I parked for the night in Iowa somewhere, and then I got up the next day, and the headwind had increased, and I had to go through the rest of Iowa with the headwind. I pedaled it again, and all the way out to Michigan, got there, and I only ended up getting 5.5 miles average for that whole drive. Now, had I filled up sooner in like Omaha or some shit, probably, excuse my language, if I filled up sooner, I probably would have managed 6 or something, but unfortunately the second day killed my average having run against that wind. And well, I filled up there, and then that leads us back to today. So I won't know what I get until I fill up again. But yeah, there you go. That's a short little, that's the kind of thing, that's how it goes. So unfortunately the wind speed, direction, and air density plays some of the biggest factors on a truck's fuel mileage, or anything's fuel mileage for the most part. But so the wind speed, direction, and air density plays the biggest part, a lot of it at least. How you drive the truck, the speed that you want to drive, plays the other biggest part. If you're trying to do 70 miles an hour in a stiff wind, yeah, just prepare to be really bad fuel mileage, because it's just, no matter, you could be driving a 2021 Cascadia, you'll get better fuel mileage in this wheel at 65 miles an hour for sure, but it's not going to be the 9 or 10 miles to the gallon that you could get if the wind wasn't blowing in your face and it was cold, which makes it denser, and yeah, things like that. So there you go. That's pretty much how it is. Keep your tires aired up, because that reduces the rolling resistance. Turn the truck off as much as possible. Use an APU if you have it. You back it down 5 or so miles an hour, depending on how bad the wind is. You go up in speed. There's reasons why you'll see some of these, you have Prime and CR England and, what is that, Raider Express that does the 58 miles an hour or whatever. It's ridiculous, but when you look at it, it's not super ridiculous, because those trucks, those new Cascadias and new Volvos and things like that, with all the little tricks and everything that they have going on, with the fuel efficiency, with the motors and the computer programming and the better tolerances, tighter tolerances in the engine, getting the most out of it, and the aerodynamics being as, you know, redefined as best as they can be. Well, actually refined, not redefined, but refined as best as they are at this point. And then you not having two differentials in the back to where you only have just one actual axle and the other one's just a dummy axle for the weight, and super singles and trailer skirts and all that. That all adds up to where those trucks doing like 58, 60 miles an hour without a stiff wind in their face will get 10 miles to the gallon, no problem. Some of them can even top 12 if they got a good tailwind and they still do 60 or 58 miles an hour. Now, at the same time, conversely, if they just did 65, it wouldn't really matter so much because they would still probably pull 6.5 to 7 miles to the gallon, which is why an old truck like this, if a driver drives it efficiently, is still able to be on the road because it can still hang with trucks that newer trucks if people just drive them at 65, 70 miles an hour, because they're really not getting that much better fuel mileage, but they're able to go faster until they break down because of the emissions, which this one doesn't have. So, but you know, I'm only doing 60 miles an hour today, and I've been doing it pretty much since a little bit before Omaha. I had to slow down. That's when the winds changed. But yeah, I said it was going to be a quick video. Well, I kind of lied, but if you watch it, thanks for watching. You know, always like, comment, subscribe if you feel it helps out a lot, and